Hello and welcome! Today I have been requested to review Star Wars The Force Unleashed for the Nintendo DS. If you were to ask me back when I got the PSP version of The Force Unleashed if it was at all possible to be playable on an original DS, my answer was going to be a solid no. This is a portable system which could barely run LEGO Star Wars. How on earth was this dinky thing going to run a next generation console game which just barely scraped by on the more powerful PSP? Well, after playing it, let's just say I was more than impressed with this game than it had any right to be. Today's video is sponsored by us at the 16-Bit Store. New to the 16-Bit Store is our 3D printable Nintendo DS styluses. After months of designing and testing, we now have 3D printable replacement styluses for the Nintendo DS, DS Lite, DSi, and the DSi XL. Our styluses are printed specifically for strength, so your styluses will not just fit your system comfortably, but it can be removed easily and won't accidentally fall out. If you're interested or want to support the channel, please visit the 16-Bit Store on eBay or Etsy. I'll have links in this video's description or in the cards. When I turned on Star Wars The Force Unleashed, I didn't know what to expect, but I was quite relieved when I saw that it was developed by N-Space. Though they didn't develop it yet, N-Space is the same developers who made the unique DS port of Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron and the DS Call of Duty games. So I knew I was going to be in good hands, but I didn't know how good until I started a new game. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This is a DS game? The game's completely in 3D, and somehow N-Space managed to make it a brawler like the console and portable counterparts. Sure, it's scaled way back, but I'm just shocked that this is actually running on a Nintendo DS. And that shock continued throughout the prologue and into the game itself. Though the game is watered down, N-Space included as much as they could from the console versions of The Force Unleashed, from a wide variety of enemy types to destructible environments, boss fights with both Jedis, huge monsters, and machines. They even included cinematic quick time events. For what it is, the game itself is fun. It's enjoyable to beat the living snot out of enemies and bosses. Combat looks cool and flashy. It has combos and unlockable force powers, tricky enemies with great sound design, and so much more. I'm impressed that N-Space was able to cram this all into a DS cart. Though this isn't the same Force Unleashed game which I've played before, what is here works especially well on the DS. And I really had fun with it. But I do feel the game is slightly held back by the game's biggest flaws: the controls. You see, The Force Unleashed is another casualty of checklist game design, because The Force Unleashed is a game which has no real use for a touchscreen. It's a brawler, you just need some face buttons, which the DS has plenty of. However, N-Space felt inclined to use the touchscreen anyways, and their idea was to ignore every face button except the D-pad and use the touchscreen for all of your actions, attacks, and force powers. On paper, it's a nice idea. You'll have a slight delay in your attack, which is okay because you can now easily visualize your combos by dragging and doodling on your screen in order to do a combo. If your combo works, it turns green and Starkiller unleashes a great amount of damage to his enemies. It's sort of my first beat 'em up by design. In practice though, it's an absolute mess, since the action and by extension your focus should just be on that top screen, and all of your attacks and everything else should sort of be instinctual and you don't really need to look at it. But since there is no physical feedback like a button on the bottom touchscreen, all of your focus is going to be on that touchscreen to make sure that you do make the correct combos, you hitting the right attacks. So when you are playing the game, it might look like how I'm showing it to you right now, but what it feels like is this. And this is not enjoyable to look at, since it's very hard to pay attention to and follow the action that's happening on screen. And what's worse is that the QuickTime events has the same issue, but extenuated by 1,000, since in combat when you fail, you take a little bit of damage, or you might have to restart at the last checkpoint. Not that big of an issue. But in QuickTime events, you not only have to get back to the QuickTime event again, but you have to sort of do the minigame all the way to the point where you last failed, and that can take minutes at a time, and this minigame is not the most intriguing. So, even though Starkiller could be doing the coolest thing ever on the top screen, quite literally all I can focus on is balls on my lower screen. Though I do complain a lot about these controls, honestly, they don't actually ruin this game's experience, because the game is relatively easy, and one of the best parts of The Force Unleashed is its story, and it's here as well. Sure, it's a Spark Notes retelling of The Force Unleashed, but all the characters are here, and they managed to even include 3D cutscenes in between missions, unlike Star Wars Battlefront Elite Squadron. And sure, you are missing some planets due to size constraints, and the original soundtrack has none of the game's original scores. But despite all of that, The Force Unleashed is still a very enjoyable game. So, as a Star Wars DS game, The Force Unleashed has impressed me. Despite being held back by the console it's on and the controls that it used, Star Wars The Force Unleashed on DS is one of the best Star Wars games on this system. It's actually debatable which is better, this game or Elite Squadron. I feel it's a worthy addition to my game library, and if you were thinking of getting it, I'd say it's worth adding to yours too. Though I do feel it's worth adding that the PSP game is superior to it, and if you are looking for The Force Unleashed to be played on the go, I get that before picking up this game. But anyways, thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you have yourself a good day, and as always, take care. And if you have anything you'd like to see us talk about in future viewer specials, please leave it below, or if you wish to participate in future viewer specials, please check out our community page for future polls.